Imagine how your life might have changed if your mother and father left you in the hospital right after you were born. For 6 lonely months, no one would come to pick you up. You never felt your mother's loving touch or their embrace. How might your life have been different? Well, recently, I met a person who was abandoned in a hospital at birth. He is going to share this very painful story of what it's like to grow up alone. He said that life was one disaster after another. Today, his life is going to really change forever because this once abandoned little boy actually has 9 brothers and sisters, and we're going to introduce him to some of them for the very first time. Now, we also want you to imagine how your life might have been different if at age 2 you were abandoned by your mother. You would spend your entire life asking, why me? Well, that's what happened to this young woman. Today, she's going to find out why her when her mom paints a different story of what happened 21 years ago. Today, we are going to bring mother and daughter together for the first time in over 20 years. We want you to imagine what it would feel like to have a loved one disappear from your life, especially if that loved one was your own newborn baby daughter. My first guest is a very unusual man. This man has spent 44 years of his life looking for a baby girl. Is that right? Are you okay, sir?
Yes, I'm fine.
Are you sure? Okay. This is Peter. 44 years ago, Peter became the proud father of a baby girl named
Rosalie.
Rosalie, I love you. Rosalie, I care. She was his proud bundle of joy. But after the baby was born, what happened?
I was told that I was leaving to go to Korea.
Okay, the Korean War.
Korean War. I would have to leave my family, which the mother and the daughter behind down at Long Island, New York. I received a letter from her overseas that she had found another man. And I continued to try to trace her.
Peter, what are your memories of Rosalie?
The last time I remember her,
I'm sorry, Peter.
as a small child, counting her hands, thumbs, and feet, checked the whole body, and she was perfect. And I haven't seen her since.
Peter, why did you do this unusual thing? Why did you spend 44 years trying to find her? When you see people on the street, do you wonder? Do you look at their age and say, could this be my daughter?
True. I see some lovely woman going by, and I wonder if that was my daughter.
44 years is a very long time to wait to see a baby girl. Peter, I have a surprise for you. We found Rosalie. She's waiting backstage, and she really wants to see you. Rosalie, come on up. Peter, are you all right?
Uh-huh.
Rosalie, did you have any idea this man was searching for you for so long?
No, Sally, not at all.
Rosalie grew up in foster care for most of her childhood. What did you know about your father?
I didn't know anything.
Nothing.
Nothing.
Not a thing about him. Yours was rather a tough existence, too, as a child, right?
Yes.
When you were 16,
I got pregnant. I didn't get along with my mom.
And
At
when-
15, we were taken out of the foster home, my brother and I.
well,
And we
being
went to
15.
live with,
Billy.
and then we went to live with my mom. Well, I didn't get along with my mom too well.
And at 16, there
And
you are
at
pregnant.
16, I was pregnant.
Not making it any easier.
No.
Would you like to introduce Peter to someone?
Yeah. You were
Danny,
Who is
he's
this?
my third son that lives with his dad.
You can sit down. Sit down here. Have you ever wondered what your grandfather was like?
Oh, yeah.
Welcome to your grandfather. Peter, you have a surprise of your own. You also brought some special people along with you. Peter has 3 daughters, Dee, Suzanne, and Vicky. You are their new big sister. Let's give them a chance to say hello. Can you imagine? We'll be right back. This mother has come here today to share a heartbreaking story of being forced to give up her firstborn daughter. This was a baby that was born out of an illicit affair. 27 years later, Mom will finally reveal to her daughter the whole truth. I want you to meet Linda. By the way, it was Linda's daughter, Dana, that was searching for her. Now, before we meet the daughter, we're going to hear Linda's unbelievable story. It took place 27 years ago when she was forced to give up her firstborn daughter. Mother and daughter have not seen each other ever.
I got to hold her when she was a day old and kiss her goodbye.
1 day old.
1 day old.
Okay, so they have seen each other when the child was 1 day old. They're going to meet for the first time in a few minutes. Take me back to the beginning. Now, this is a little difficult for anybody, I think, to have to admit, because sometimes when these things happen, we've done something that we might be a bit ashamed of. You were married at the time.
I was married to a Marine that had shipped out to Vietnam, and I had gone out to live on the West Coast with him.
Okay.
I was pregnant at the time with our son.
All right.
And after he shipped out, I had our son, and he didn't support us. There was problems right from the first, so I took a job in a soul food restaurant cleaning to make ends meet, and I met a black fellow that was also being shipped to Vietnam, and we were just friends. And then all of a sudden it evolved into like 2 weeks, and then he shipped out.
So your husband is overseas, you have a lover, the
Yes.
lover is shipped out, and you're still left in the cleaning the soul food restaurant
Right.
with a new baby and no money.
No money at all.
And you made a discovery, you were pregnant. Couldn't be the husband, had to be the lover.
Had
Now,
to be.
that baby was Dana, right?
Yes.
What reason would you have to have hold her for 1 day and give her up? What happened?
I knew eventually I would have to go back home, and home is Salamone, Indiana. And 30 years ago, it wasn't like it is now, nor was I like I am now. I'm a strong person now, and I knew she wouldn't. I was afraid she would be mistreated.
Because she was biracial?
Because she was biracial.
Did you tell your husband that you were pregnant?
I wasn't going to, and then when I was 5.5 months, he sent me a letter from Vietnam saying he wanted me to meet him in Hawaii for R&R, and that it was up. I had to tell him the truth.
Because if you're going to meet somebody for R&R, you're already out to R&R.
Yes, I was. Basically so.
What was the feeling in giving up the child?
The feeling was hell because when I was growing up, I'm one of 6 children. And when I was 14, Mom had a baby sister, and when I was 18, she had a baby sister, and I took care of them. And all I ever really wanted was a baby daughter. But I could not do that to her. I just couldn't.
Did you ever have another daughter?
No, I named them all girls' names, and they were all boys.
How did you feel when you learned that Dana was trying to find you?
Oh, God.
How do you feel about seeing your daughter?
I've been more concerned about how she might feel seeing me.
Yeah.
I since have been diagnosed bipolar manic depressive, and now I understand why maybe I wasn't nearly as strong back then.
But you're strong now.
Oh, yeah. I'm real strong now.
Okay, we are going to meet you and Cabbage Patch.
This is Aurora.
Aurora. We're going to meet the daughter that you gave up 27 years ago. Dana, please come on out.
Oh, God, you're like a dream come
Oh my God.
Let me first apologize for mispronouncing your name. My cousin's name is Dana, and it's spelled the same way. Please sit down.
I better before I fall down.
I think she's a bit old for this. It's a pacifier.
But she's yours.
Dana, welcome to the show, and you're the person who actually initiated this search
Yes.
for your
Yes, I did.
biological mother. Before you tell us why, it's very important that we learn about your childhood.
Well, Sally, I've had a great childhood. I've
Great
had a
childhood.
I've been raised very well.
Can I meet your parents? Do you love your parents?
To death.
To
I love
death.
my parents to death. They are my parents.
Can I meet them?
Sure.
They're somewhere here, right?
Yes. It's my father,
Hello.
Bill, and my mother, Doris.
Bill and Doris? I don't She's a fine girl that you have.
Thank you very, very much.
Fine girl that you have. You know, I'm an adoptive parent too, so this means a great deal to me. And I think you have to be one to really understand. I think it's wonderful that you came here to support her. Thank you.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate it. Are you all right?
I'm the best I've been in 27 and a half years.
We'll be right back. That's a pretty wonderful thing. Today we're helping people search for missing loved ones, and I want you to meet Angelique. She has been desperate to find her brother Dale, whom she says was taken from their home when she was a little girl, and she has no idea why. Tell me about your childhood.
Well, it was a very difficult childhood. It was like a classic Cinderella story. Had an evil stepmother.
An evil a real one.
Really evil, very much so. My parents were divorced when I was very young, and my dad took my brother and I, and my mother kept her 4 older daughters from a previous marriage. And soon after that, he met my stepmother and married her, and she always came first, so the kids got left to the side. And when I was in 1st grade, I ended up living with my aunt and uncle, and my brother Dale was sent to live with my mom. And I kind of went back and forth between households.
Not good for a child.
No, not at all, not at all. And I'm not sure exactly why, but it was because of my stepmother. And, you know, Dale was sent to live with my mom, and the last time I saw him I was in 1st grade, and I went to visit my mom when I was 12, and I had very little contact with her, very little. But before I left, my stepmother told me that they had given my brother up for adoption when he was 9.
When he was 9?
9 years old.
You told our producers that your only good memories from childhood were the ones of your brother, who
Right.
just disappeared at 9 years of age. Can you share some of the memories?
Yeah, we had a lot of fun. It was like a typical brother-sister relationship. You know, he tormented me, told me little things, like there were these dandelion things that would fly around in Tahoe. And he told me, if those catch you, they're going to suck your blood and eat your bones. And so for years, I was terrified of these
dandelions?
things. Yeah, they're like little floaty white things. Terrified of them. But, you know, he'd ride me around on his handlebars on his bike and take me down to a local store, and we stole some toys. He taught me how to do little things like that.
He taught you how to steal?
Well, a little bit.
It's kind of sweet, I guess.
Yeah.
Angelique, why do you, it's been 25 years since you've seen your brother Dale. Why do you want to try and find him?
Well, I've always wanted to try to find him. I think it's very important. I mean, he was so important to me as a child.
It was the
And-
two of you against the world.
Yeah, I mean, we were on our own a lot. Just
Right.
the two of us playing, catching lizards, doing typical things. I just think.
Whenever
for
you see
closure.
somebody on the street, do you think, gosh, that may be my brother?
You know, I've done that, even at Toys R Us, you know, because for all I know, he lives around the block from me in Las Vegas, you know, and I've been at Toys R Us, I'm like, oh my gosh, that might be him. And then I never get the courage up to go and ask, because they might think I'm crazy.
But every time you see somebody who looks
Yeah,
like you,
sure.
you
Blue
think
eyes.
that. I
Yes.
think 25 years is probably long enough. Come on out.
Surprise, surprise.
Well, I guess we surprised you. Let me look at you. I have to see if you look like her.
A little bit.
A little bit. How did you feel when you found out your sister was searching for you?
Oh my God, it floored me. It floored me, it did, because, you know, I had really, about 6 months ago, really started searching hard. I'd gone to my adoptive parents and gotten my birth certificate, a copy of my adoption papers, and then all of a sudden, out of the blue, International Locators calls me and says, here's Angelique. You know, she's been looking for you, and it
Does
really...
she look the way you
Wow.
thought she'd look?
No, actually.
Well, he's being honest. Tell me and Angelique about the family that adopted you. You went into a foster home first, and then you were adopted out.
Yes. The adoptive family that adopted me, they are great people.
How does the family that adopted you feel about you reuniting with Angelique?
You know what? I went to my father, my adoptive father, and I was a little apprehensive because, you know, they, out of all the people in the world, they chose me. You know, it's not...
That's right.
You know, so there's a special bond there, and I really, really didn't want to hurt them at all, you know, but they seemed very excited, actually, when I talked to them, because they felt that this would answer a lot of questions in my life, being reunited
They sound
with my
like
sisters.
very good people.
They are.
Very good people.
Very
Are they
good
Mormons?
people. Yes, they are.
Okay. Angelique, we have another surprise for you. First, I want you to meet Dale's sister, Lynette. Lynette, can you come on out? Lynette, you wanted to speak to Angelique?
When Dale was 9, we invited him into our family, and we've spent a lot of years with him, loving him as a brother. And my family is ready to open our arms and accept you into our family as a sister.
We'll be right back. This friend of mine was abandoned in the hospital. He spent his whole life feeling isolated and alone. And today, his life is going to change forever when he meets the family that he never knew he had. Would you believe that he has 10 brothers and sisters? This is a reunion you don't want to miss.
You are the Five. Get off my stage.
I know a man who recently touched my heart with his emotional story. This man's name is Bob Korn. Bob is 46 years old. And one day, my husband, Carl, was with me in the office, and he gets a call from Bob, which is not that unusual because we've known him for a while. And Bob says that in one day, he went from thinking he'd been an only child his whole life to finding out he had 10 brothers and sisters. Now that's a story. Take me back to the beginning. You told me that after you were born, nobody came to get you at the hospital?
Well, my mom, she was committed to a mental institution. She was the first lieutenant Army Nurse Corps, and she was like 48 or something like that when I was born. And the stress of that and everything, she just couldn't handle it, so she was committed. My dad was about 55, and what was he going to do with a child that old? But I did find out that I was there until I was like 6 months old.
Now, can you imagine that a child is left in a hospital, the mother they take away to a mental institution, the father doesn't want the child, and they leave you in a hospital for 6 months?
Roughly, yeah. And then my grandmother, which is my mom's stepmother in South Carolina, she was 5 years older than my dad, actually. She was bound and determined to come and get me. My grandfather didn't want her to come, and a lot of the other relatives didn't want her because she was, she was 60 and was too old to raise a child, but my grandmother was really strong and great, and she said to hell with it. She boarded a plane, and she went to Chicago, and she picked me up out of that hospital, and she brought me back to South Carolina.
So you're 6 months old, and Grandma comes to get you. What was Grandma's name?
Her name was, well, I called her Mama, but she was Aunt Mitty and Miss Mitty. And we lived in this old house. We didn't have any running water. We had a well.
No water?
No, we had a well. You go out and you roll it up. We had outdoor plumbing. You had a two-holer. And a coal truck used to come and drop off a ton of coal because we'd, get that in the winter and put it in a coal stove.
Were there any nice neighbors who helped you out?
Well, I'm glad you asked that, Sally. If you get Hillary Clinton's book, Takes a Village to Raise a Kid, well, my village that raised me is on 000 Road, Ware Place, South Carolina. That's just south of Greenville. And there were Helen Whitney and Bob and Bill Whitney and their 3 kids. There were the Chandlers. They had a farm, Helen and Wilton and Wilda. He was the closest thing I had to a dad. Used to go down and plow and throw chicken manure out because they had a chicken farm, raised chicken. And you had to take it out because otherwise you couldn't walk in the chicken coops. So you throw it on the field.
Isn't this a guy?
All
right.
And
Bad
my best friend was Steve Candler because he was my age and he rented a house his parents did from Helen Whitney and them.
Okay. Then one day he's at school and he sees somebody coming across the field, and it's like a social worker type, and he knows something. He knows that grandmother, which is step-grandmother, has died. He's 12 years old. Where did you go?
We were practicing for this high school thing. I was in the band, and she came across the field. As soon as I saw her, I knew. And I went home, and they were bringing, and my mama, she was still laying on the bed. I'll never forget seeing her laying there. And she died on Friday. They took her to the mortuary, brought her back, because they do that down south. They put your casket there, and people come to the house, so you could walk in and look at her. And they buried her on Sunday, and I was in the orphanage on Monday.
His life went from bad to worse. All kinds of unpleasant things happen. An orphanage is not a great place. And yet, he has managed to turn his life around. He is a very successful antique dealer. He lives on a boat in Mystic, Connecticut. And then, one day, a Christmas card came that changed his entire life. Tell me about it.
A friend of mine in Middletown called up one of my address, sent me a Christmas card. So I gave it to him, and then he said, well, how do you spell your last name? So I spelled it. And he goes, that's a strange name. And I said, well, yeah, tell me about it. I've been looking 30 years trying to find anybody with my name, because I went to college in Texas and stuff. I got personalized plates and all that kind of stuff. And never found anybody. I used to spend weekends when other people were at the beach. I'd be on the phone calling around the country, called Europe, called everywhere. And I never could find anybody. So he said, oh, don't worry about it, Bob. I'll find your family for you. And I took it like always a goofball, So, because I worked hard to find them, and I couldn't. So sure enough, Monday, right before New Year's, here comes that card. And inside is this yellow piece of paper, has 14 names on it. About 5 of those names were misspelled, and they weren't Corrins. So I went to call. I have a half-brother from my mom's first marriage. We weren't very close, but I have a niece and nephew, and his name's Patrick. So I went to Patrick Corrin on the list, and I dialed it. And I said, hi, this is Bob Corrin. I'm looking for my family. My dad was Harry J. Corrin, and I was born in Upper Sandusky, Ohio, and he married my mom in Bowling Green, Kentucky, and all this kind of stuff. It was a big scream on the phone.
He was real.
Yeah, and it's just I just couldn't believe it.
Now that's when you called Carl. Have you met any of these people? You're what? What did we say your age was?
I'm 46.
You're 46 years old and never had any relatives?
Nothing.
I think it's time that you meet these people.
Great.
Please come out, sisters Harriet, Rita, Peggy, brother Bobby, stepmother Lola.
Hi there. You are great.
Thank you.
Do you, have you put, please sit down, all of you. Have you put any kind of a background to these people, Bob? Do you know who they are? I mean, I put name tags on them because I thought that maybe that would work. Harriet is the closest in age to Bob. She was born 4 years after your brother. And you brought some special people to the show for him to meet. Who did you bring?
My 2 daughters, Alicia, age 9, and Lindsay, age 7.5.
And where are they?
Uncle Bob's left. Uncle Bob number 2.
Well, now, let me tell you how I feel. I met a man who didn't know anybody, have any family. There he is. Suddenly, this guy has got more relatives and more family than you can ever imagine. He was telling us that there were some neighbors, Chandlers and somebody else,
The Whitneys.
Whitneys, who lived next door when you were a little boy. Here to surprise you is your next door neighbor, Wilda Chandler. Come on out, Wilda. can sit anywhere. Well, isn't it nice to hear that he remembered you and he thought of the family?
Yes.
She used to let me drive her car when I was like, what, 9, 10?
What do you remember of him as a little boy?
Oh, I have lots of fond memories of Bobby as a little boy, but one stands out in my mind, Sally. And he followed this pattern so often. During summer vacations, I would hear him, I was still asleep in bed. I would hear him and Duke, his dog, coming down the road. He was talking to Duke. He had come into our kitchen where my mom was, and his first comment was, "Where's Wilda?" Right on through to my bedroom, he'd stick his head around the door. "Wake up, Sleeping Beauty."
I am so glad. Again, I hope you keep in contact. You have to tell him about the whole family and what's been happening. Wilda's parents couldn't be here today. She has been kind enough to bring you a message. I'd like you to, Bob, you look up at that, or over here, either way, and let's take a look.
Bobby, I wish I could be with you today, but according to health problems, I can't. And I wish you luck. I miss you running around with me on the tractor. You helped me round up the cows. I love you. And you sing with one of my boys, so.
Hi, Bobby. I'm sorry I can't be up there with you today. If I remember the first time I ever saw you, you was about a year old, and your aunt scolded you for something, and I took you up on my lap and petted you, and from that day on, you always seemed like my own little boy. I love you, Bobby, and hope to see you soon.
We'll be right back. This woman believes that her mother walked out on her over 20 years ago. And the mother says it didn't happen that way. Next, Mom is going to reveal the painful truth, and we're going to bring them back together for the first time. Stay tuned. We've been having actually a wonderful time trying to reunite family members, some of whom haven't seen each other, and some of whom haven't seen each other in like 44 years. This is Lisa. Lisa is not 44 years old, are you, Lisa? No. Lisa would like to find her mother, Diana, who she believes left her over 20 years ago. Left you?
Yes.
What were you told about why your mother left you?
That she cheated on my dad.
She cheated on your dad. And then what happened?
My dad said that she was unfit, so he took me away from her.
Okay. How was your childhood?
I didn't have a childhood.
What was Dad like?
He was never there for me. I was tossed in between him and my grandmother.
Okay.
And then when she passed away, I was put in a foster home.
Did grandmother help your father raise you?
No, she would just raise me, and then when my dad would get a girlfriend and he would think that she was fit to be my mom, then he would want me to come to stay with him.
So it's grandmother's house and back in a new girlfriend, and grandmother's house and back in a new girlfriend. How old were you when grandmother died?
I was 14.
Was she a good woman?
Yes.
And then you were put into foster care at 14.
No, I was 15 when I was put in a foster home.
How long did you live in foster care?
For 2 years.
And then what happened?
Then I was on my own at 17.
Why did you not check to see what had happened to your mother?
Because I was scared.
Scared of what?
She wouldn't want me.
Why?
Because of what my dad said.
What did your dad say?
Just that she was unfit, you know, like she didn't want to be my mom. that's why, you know, she had cheated.
She cheated because she didn't want to be your mom. That's what he told you.
Yes.
Wow. 21 years, a long time not to have a mother. And I don't think you should wait another moment. Would you like to meet your mother? I can make that happen.
I would like it very much.
I'll do my best. Diana, come on out. Diana, can I talk to you? Lisa, sit down. Diana, sit down. Let me get something straight, Diana. Lisa has told me that she was told that you left her. You left her because you didn't want her, and you cheated on her father.
None of that's true. None of that's true.
What's the truth?
He was an evil man. And I tried so hard to find you. So hard. I love you so much. I love you too. And I am your mother. I always have and I always will be. I've always loved you.
Lisa, when you dream about having a mother, what do you dream about?
You know, us going shopping, you know, spending time together. You know, that's what I always wanted, especially when I was in high school.
To have a mom to go shopping with? I make miracles happen, don't I? We have this great surprise. It starts right outside the studio door. You're going to go shopping in a limousine, and you're going to go on a shopping spree in New York City, and Liz Claiborne, the designer, is going to pay the bill. So you get up right now, go have a great time together. Go ahead. We'll be right back. Are you looking for a loved one who is lost? And what happens when some of these loved ones reunite? Stay tuned. Say hello to Troy Dunn. Troy is the president. You saw us put International Locator. He is responsible for many of the reunions you saw here today. And so thank you for your hard work. I have some things I want to talk to you about. First of all, you said to me there's something really unusual about two of those reunions.
Well, you know what's really interesting to me is that, you know, you showed a statistic earlier that we had provided about 3 out of 4 adoptive parents are supporting their children, adult children, in searching. It didn't used to always be that way.
Oh, gosh, no. Adoptive
parents have always had this great fear that somebody was going to come show up some time and take their children away and say, I want them back.
Right.
And we are completely against that, first of all. I know there's this big Baby Richard thing going on in the news, and we're completely against people taking their children back. But I have to tell you, you know, I know a lot of people videotape your show. I know my wife does every day. So what I'd like to do for those who watch it, I'd like them to back it up again. I'd like them to watch that segment when Dana's adoptive parents watched her meet her birth mother. Because although it's exciting that birth mother is able to meet Dana,
think of how the parents
you watch
felt.
the courage in their face to stand there and watch their daughter meet the woman that gave birth to her. Those are the heroes.
Yes, that family that was sitting right over there, they're the heroes. Now, Bob Korn found out through a friend who has an internet that he had the 10 brothers and sisters. So, how helpful is the internet in finding people?
Well, Sally, you know what, in my personal opinion, which may be against others, it's not as helpful as I would have guessed it would be.
Why?
Well, because some of the information out there, I mean, we searched through there and tried to see what was out there. More times than not, it's business cards for private investigators who just want you to call and give them money. So
it's very, very important that people want to be contacted, that it's done with a psychological background.
You're exactly right. You know, people always ask, will they accept me? Will they want to talk to me? And I tell everybody, the most important part of finding out whether or not someone will be accepted is how you make that first contact. That has everything to do with it. Whether you gently enter into their life or you come barging in. And obviously, we're all for gently entering into their life.
I think you guys, as always, have done a wonderful job. Say hello to your mom, and we're going to put the name and address up in case any of you are looking for anyone. We'll be right back.
You are the foul. Get off my stage.
It's important to know that television, even a show like ours, is not all real life. What that means is that these reunions are much, much more complicated than they appear. And so you got to put yourself in the hands of a professional and know what you're doing. Thank you for staying with us today, and I'll see you next time.